Politicians are your adversaries, people are your friends. सरकारी नौकरी 9 से 6 की होती है, 9 से 5 की होती है, बिल्कुल नहीं. In my opinion, success is very personal, very subjective. So whatever makes me feel that I have done enough for the day, that's success for me. Preparation strategy, the preparation methodology for every aspirant has to be unique. I never followed anybody's style and I don't believe that anybody should follow mine. You should always imagine your life much beyond clearing the exam. What exactly do you want to do after you clear the exam? UPSC and life in general is like a boxing ring. You lose the fight not when you fall down, but when you refuse to get back up.
I am your host Gaurav Garg and we welcome all our viewers to our show Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Mr. Shubham Gupta. He is an Indian Administrative Service Officer of 2019 batch Maharashtra cadre, currently posted as Assistant Collector in Nasik. Before this, he worked in Indian Audit and Account Service for 2 years. He completed his graduation in Economics Honours from Delhi College of Art and Commerce, University of Delhi. It's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Shubham Gupta to our show Amazing Mentor. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Tell us about your childhood and hobbies you enjoy as a child.
So I grew up in Jaipur, that's where I belong to. And then quite actually in the middle of my childhood, when I was in 8th standard, we had to move out of Jaipur and start a life in a new city altogether. And it was coincidentally Maharashtra again. So it was in Dahanu Road, which is on the border of Gujarat and Maharashtra. So my childhood in that sense, I won't say it was a very normal childhood because my school was located in an altogether different city, which was about 80 kilometers from the place where I used to stay. My sister and I, we both of us used to travel every day to school by train and then come back. In terms of hobbies, I don't think I had much time for hobbies because after school hours, I used to help my dad in kind of managing a shoe shop, which my father had started in the Hanu Road. And there were basically 2 shops. So one my father used to manage, one I used to manage. In 11th standard, we moved to Vapi altogether, the family. And I think then that's when we finally started. But the work was already also there. So again, no time for hobbies as such. But I really enjoyed participating in school activities such as debates, extempore speaking. In terms of childhood, no, not much in hobbies, but more of trying to earn a livelihood for myself and my family.
So what about your schooling? Where did you complete your schooling from?
My schooling basically till 7th standard happened in various schools of Jaipur. So my parents had this interesting idea that they would only put us up in a school which was nearer to our residence. And because we were always in a rented accommodation, we used to keep changing houses, and by that logic we also used to keep changing schools. But when we moved out of Jaipur after my 7th standard, it was in 2007, that's when we finally got ourselves in Sri Swaminarayan Gurukul in Vapi. So that's what I said. It's Vapi is in Gujarat, Dahanu is in Maharashtra. There's a distance of over 80 kilometers between the 2 cities. So we used to travel and completed the schooling there.
And what about your childhood? How was you as a child, introvert or extrovert child?
I think I was pretty introvert, because I think there's a very interesting incident that when I actually moved to Delhi after 12th standard, and again, just to give you a brief background, from Dahanu and Vapi, there are very, very small, I won't even say cities, they're basically towns, right? So there is very less exposure in terms of what big cities provide. When I moved to Delhi for my college education, it took me almost 6 months to get myself to even be able to speak to people or try to make friends. So my best alternative in college in the first 6 months was that I will just kind of go to the college, sit in the first bench, just talk about studies with a couple of people, and then come back as soon as possible so that I don't have to interact with anybody. And then stay at home all day, try to read, maybe try to watch a movie or something. And then again the same routine happened and followed for the next 6 months. And it's only after about 6 months that I realized that I need to change. I need to do something about it. And I think that was kind of a turning point in my personality also. So I don't know whether I was an introvert or an extrovert because I used to manage a business also. It's very difficult for an introvert to do business also. So I wasn't really an introvert, but I wasn't very exposed also. So in that sense, I couldn't have been a very good extrovert also.
So what was your dream profession as a child and how many times did it change?
I think it changed a couple of times. I think there was a time where I really wanted to be a lawyer. I don't think I ever wanted to be a doctor as such. I decided about UPSC quite early. I decided that I will appear for this exam after 10th standard. So I think before that it was lawyer, and after that it has always been UPSC.
So what was that inspiration of choosing UPSC as your career?
Again, there's kind of an interesting incident. So when I was in about 5th standard or something, my dad, being a businessman, he used to interact with a lot of bureaucrats. So one of those days, he wasn't having a very good kind of interaction with one of the bureaucrats from Daman. And interaction in terms of, so that a particular officer used to call my dad to his office every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then till 8 o'clock in the evening, my dad used to keep waiting and he will not meet him. And this happened for 3-4 days. One fine day, my father was very frustrated. He came up to me and told me, "Beta, tu bada hoke collector banna aur अच्छा officer banna, लोगों को परेशान मत करना." I think that's, and I'm not saying that is when I really started or made a decision about what I wanted to do in my life, because I don't think I had any idea of what my dad was talking about. It was just, he was also in a passion of moment. He just told me about that I want you to do this in your life. And I just heard him out and then just left it and started living my life like normal before, right? But I think when after 10th standard, when I had to make a choice between science and commerce, that's when I finally decided what exactly am I going to do? Like because I wasn't very interested in science, but my marks were very good. So I was the only one who scored 10 CGPA in the entire district in that year, in Valsad district. So my teachers really wanted me to go for science because intelligent बच्चे तो science ही लेते हैं. But I wasn't of the same opinion. So my elder brother, who is 3 years elder to me, both of us really sat down and discussed what are the career opportunities that we're looking at if we go for commerce. So then one was chartered accountant. I didn't want to do that. My sister was already doing that. So I wasn't interested in chartered accountancy. Then other options we were just trying to explore. And then one of the options which came across was why don't you try for UPSC? Like again, business family, so there's always a craze of bureaucrats, IAS officers and all that. So I was also a part of that, but then I really thought about it and I really felt that I am not somebody who's really somebody who wants to earn a lot of money, and buy expensive houses and cars and all that. So I'm not one of those people. I want a decent life where I'm able to make an impact. And I think that was a moment when my elder brother actually suggested that why don't you try this? And that really struck me. Somehow I give credit to the fact that my dad had said this something up to me about 5 years back, which kind of stayed with me in my subconscious, and of course what I wanted my life to look like. So that is when I made that decision of UPSC.
So how was your journey and what all challenges did you face in your journey or to become an officer?
I went to Delhi with the idea that I'm going to appear for civil services, and with the idea, of course, that I wanted economics honors as my course in Delhi because I wanted economics as my optional. Right. But when I actually landed in Delhi and we started scouting for colleges and percentage game cutoffs and all that in Delhi, which is crazy during the time of admissions, right? So I couldn't get myself in a good college in economics honors, but a bad college, and then a good college, not economics honors, BCom honors. So basically there was a lot of combinations going on, and finally we settled with a BCom honors in a good college. Another subsequent cutoffs, I finally qualified for economics honors also, but due to some administrative glitch, my name was not there in the roll. So when I actually started, when I went to Delhi to start college, I was very excited that I finally got a good course in a decent college. But when I actually reached the college, I was in for a surprise, and people told me that you are supposed to go to BCom honors and not economics honors. So I was really shell-shocked. Because the entire future was dependent on me taking economics honors at that point of time, right? Because optional economics lena hai, sab kuch economics tha. So it was really important for me at that point of time that I am supposed to study in economics honors and not BCom honors. And then I basically talked to administration, told to ask them kya kar sakte hain, what can be done, what is the alternative. They told me that you please go and talk to the HOD of economics honors. If she agrees, then we will have no problem in transferring you to that course. And I said, okay. And then for the next 2 weeks, I used to just go outside the staff room and stand there for the next 2 weeks, every single day. And then one fine day after 2 weeks, the HOD actually came and she spoke to me, she talked to me, I tried to convince her. She told me, why do you want to do economics honors? Maine kaha, ma'am, this is the reason. And I promise you that if you select me in economics honors, I will top all 3 years of your economics honors. And so that was how I tried to convince her. And of course, I cannot guarantee that I would have topped. Coincidentally, I did. In the next 3 years, I actually did. But basically, that was something which I said just to convince her. But she was a very nice person, and I think she changed my destiny also in that sense. So ultimately, this was one of the initial challenges which I faced. Later on, of course, with trying to, kind of mold my personality as to what it's supposed to be for a bureaucrat. Like, you cannot be a very introvert officer. Interestingly and ironically, I did not choose economics as my optional, despite all that struggle, right? My optional subject was completely different, law. So this is, I think, one of the few challenges. And then, of course, I did 4 attempts. First attempt, I did not qualify prelims. That was okay, because I knew that it is not my best attempt, but I was not happy with myself about probably not giving my best. But I knew that if I give my best, I'll probably qualify. So that confidence was not shaken there. Second attempt, I qualified with 366 rank and qualified for Indian Audit and Account Service. Third attempt, I again failed the prelims exam, and I was really shattered because I couldn't believe that I had cleared the exam completely and then I failed the prelims again. And the fourth attempt, I qualified again, fortunately, with 6th rank, and fortunately, I'm able to do today what I always wanted to.
So any in college incidents you would like to share which is notorious, which you have done in your college life?
that's exactly what I was trying to say. The first 6 months, I was ideal child for any teacher, right? So I would sit in the first class, first seat, first bench, always listen to the class, ask questions, answer questions, and all that. And in the next 2.5 years, I was a completely different chap, and it went on increasing. So in the last 6 months, I was very involved in extracurricular organizing festivals, college festivals and all that, participating in a lot of activities. I won't say I was kind of a nuisance for the college. No, I never was. But I was also not the ideal child in the strictest sense of the Indian term, right? Like you have to come to the class, answer all questions and sit in the first bench, don't talk amongst each other and all that. So I wasn't that in the next 2.5 years. So in the last 6 months, the teacher who taught me in the first 6 months, she came back to teach us another course. And she made this interesting statement that Shubham, tum to aise hua karte the, ab tumhe kya ho gaya hai? And I'm like, ma'am, I'm still scoring decent marks. What is why is it necessary that I am supposed to sit in the first seat itself and be that quintessential Sharma ji ka bachcha? So I didn't want to be. I wanted to explore my personality. I wanted to kind of explore other areas of interest along with studies, and I think which benefited me a lot. So I think that was one interesting incident which happened with me in college.
So what was the reaction of your parents when they came to know, okay, now you have become an officer and you have been selected as an officer?
Gaurav, again, so this happened with them and me twice, right? So in the first instance, I qualified for audit and account service, and that's when my father and my parents and my brother, in fact, they were not even aware that such a service exists. And which is again the sad reality of the Indian bureaucracy, that people only know 2-3 services, IAS, IPS, and probably IRS, right? So and I had audit and account service over IRS. So I could have qualified for IRS, but then I filled it over that service, and that's when I got audit and account service. And I was pretty happy with my choice actually. Even today, I completely agree with what choice I made at that point of time. But my parents weren't, and they really weren't happy at all till the time it took them 3 days for somebody to start calling, and they got 500 calls. Newspapers covered it a little bit, and that's when they really realized that, okay, this is also good. Maybe not the best, but this is good, so we have to be happy. So I really actually had to fight with my father. You have not even congratulated me. What is this? So this is the reaction of a business family in terms of when I cleared the first time. And of course, the second time I was basically doing something which they had always aspired to be. So they had tears in their eyes. I had tears in my eyes. And I just called my father after seeing the result, and I just told him, Papa, ho gaya. And that was a feeling of satisfaction more than personal achievement. It was something which was kind of a relief for me. Yeah, I've done this journey for quite a long period of time. I have been through 4 years of rigorous preparation and hard work, and finally I'm seeing the results for something which I always wanted.
So where did you started your career journey from?
My career journey started from Delhi, then it went on to Shimla. Then I did my 2 years of training in Shimla, and then meanwhile I was writing the exam again. One last attempt, and then I did my training in Mussoorie. So basically, after my training in Mussoorie, which was I think for about 8.5 or 9 months, I was allotted Maharashtra cadre, which was my second choice, and then first place that I got posted was in Nashik as for my training. So the position that was given to me was assistant collector, but that's a supernumerary post, and I was basically training in Nashik, and I held 4 different independent charges. One was chief officer for a municipal body, then was a block development officer for a rural area, then it was a tehsildar, which is basically a revenue officer, and fourth is a subdivision magistrate, which I'm sure most of us know about, right? So these are the 4 charges which I handled, and then now I am actually posted in Gadchiroli, which is on the eastern side of Maharashtra near Nagpur, and I'm handling 3 independent charges. One is SDM of a place, Etapalli, then project officer, integrated tribal development plan of Bhamragad, and also chief officer of Etapalli Nagar.
So what all differences do you feel in your life post becoming an officer?
It's something which, I have also tried to think about in the last couple of years actually. So the beauty of this job is actually you start observing changes within yourself in just a couple of months only. So it doesn't even take you a couple of years to start to realize that, okay, your personality is changing. You are probably becoming a better person in terms of when you start sitting on that chair and trying to deal with a lot of issues which start coming to you. One is, of course, pressure handling, right? So you become very accustomed to pressure handling. It may also somehow make you insensitive to the extent that you're always seeing, okay, flood aa gaya, drought aa gaya, somebody has lost his or her land. So you are seeing these issues which are very, very kind of make it or break it type of things for people, for their daily livelihood, for their existence basically. But then you are seeing these matters on a daily basis, so you kind of tend to become very insensitive towards the gravity of the situation. Like you become, I am dealing with this every day. It's not a big deal. Like somebody calls you and says, "Sir, aaj flood aa gaya." I mean, koi baat nahi, I'm talking to the people. So it doesn't hurt me that much, right? But then that's when you really have to talk to yourself and tell this should bother you. You cannot become really insensitive, right? So that is when I think some of the changes which happen. So you always have to keep yourself in check in that sense. And I think this happens with all the officers. I'm not somebody unique with whom this is happening, right? Second, of course, you learn the art of basically dealing with people, because many of times you always feel, because this is at least what is taught to you, that politicians are your adversaries, people are your friends, but the line is a lot gray than white and black, right? So you really again have to draw that line and try to understand everybody's point of view before you start judging and making decisions on the piece of paper that you are supposed to. So I think that is another change. And the third, of course, is the beauty of the job is that the exposure, the kind of exposure that you have and the kind of impact that you're able to make, it is a lot of satisfaction. So you really start becoming happy going to the office and also working for 11, 12 hours a day, which generally you're not expected to, but then you really happily work for 11, 12 hours a day. So the first misconception which breaks down when you join the field is कि सरकारी नौकरी 9 से 6 की होती है, 9 से 5 की होती है. बिल्कुल नहीं होती, कभी नहीं होती है. Not even a single day I work from 9 to 5. It always goes on to 7:38. So I think these are some of the key changes which has happened, which is basically reality checks. So in terms of personality, patience. So basically I'm talking about insensitivity, sensitivities, patience, a lot of personal dealing, a lot of personality development, introvert, extrovert, all those things start to mold itself. Your aggression comes down a lot because you start becoming very peaceful in terms of, because you yourself are supposed to make peace around you. So you yourself within you also become patient and peaceful. But at the same time, there are a lot of reality checks which come to your mind, and that really helps you even in personal life in the future.
So what's that one thing you love about your profession the most?
I think the diversity of it. In training, the charges are very chair specific, right? So the diversity is there, but the diversity is not outstandingly overwhelming, right? But now in Gadchiroli, where I am posted, I have 3 different offices, and the challenges are completely outstanding because I'm dealing with everything practically that you can imagine for the area under my jurisdiction, right? There is nothing which doesn't come under my purview, and that is the challenge also, and that is kind of the opportunity also. So there's a lot of opportunity in whatever can be done, but the challenge is how to do it and how to handle so much which is already there on your plate, and you actually are supposed to deliver on all of them. All your 8 to 9 years of field posting, which in Maharashtra generally happens for everybody in the first 8-9 years of your career, it keeps on increasing, it keeps on getting difficult, but then you keep feeling that it's getting easier because you have gone through that pressure, you've gone through that grind of things, that eventually you stop feeling that pressure, which I am feeling right now because it's just been 3 weeks for me being into that this position, right?
So who is your mentor as an officer?
I'm not somebody who watched even a single Topper's talk when I was preparing. So I don't know. I try to learn things from everybody and anybody who's doing some good work, but I don't think I have still found somebody who really is my mentor, and I'm really looking up to them for everything that they do.
So how supportive and difficult was it to adjust with the old staff in the beginning?
It depends on which office you are posted to, or who is your predecessor, how has work happened in the past in that particular office, right? When I was training, most of the offices that were given to me, these were positions where an IAS officer wasn't posted before me. Some state officer was posted. And there is generally a difference of working style between an IAS officer and somebody who's not from the IAS, right? That's just because of how people start looking at you. It's not even that an officer is good or bad, but it's just how your staff starts to look at you, right? So in that sense, it's actually very difficult because in the first 3 to 4 weeks of your tenure there, it takes your staff also a lot of time to start adjusting to your pace of work, and also to understand how exactly they should behave. There are a lot of unwritten rules, so to say, which happen in a government office, but which you have to deal with in a very, very kind of systematic way, right? So that also takes some time. Your staff is completely new to your way of functioning. Another is when your predecessor is somebody who is extremely efficient, that makes your job and life much, much, much easier. But if your predecessor is not that efficient, then it takes a lot of time for you to kind of again bring them to pace. So I always say this to my staff because I think I am right now at a faster pace as compared to what my staff is used to. So I always say this to my staff, कि या तो आप मेरे pace पे आना सीख जाओगे या मैं धीरे हो जाऊंगा. So it is something probably which will happen in the middle of it, but that's again, unfortunately, the reality of government offices. That if I think that I can work at a faster pace, but I am not allowed to, and I will eventually, this will happen to me that I will probably become slower. So again, the sad reality of a government office, but of course, there are ways to deal with it.
So as a young officer, how was the feeling when you got your first posting?
I think it was something which was overwhelming, so to say. I was basically coming to a new state, right? That's also something which was bearing in my mind, that I'm going to a new state, Maharashtra, where the language is different from what I speak. People may understand Hindi, but people are not very familiar with it also, right? So I had a challenge of learning the language also, but leaving everything apart, just coming to the field, the feeling of it, and especially when I started handling offices as independent charges, it was just outstanding. Like even right from the day one, I could observe the kind of impact that I was making or could have made in the lives of the people. And that was just a feeling of immense satisfaction. So I think in the field, I really understood what I always dreamt of, and I made that choice of opting for commerce after 10th standard.
So what are your role and responsibility as Assistant Collector Etapalli and Project Officer ITDP?
So basically, as SDM in Etapalli, the revenue cases, the land cases also come under us, and of course a lot of magisterial inquiries which are related to police encounters and accidental deaths. So right now here I don't have much revenue work, but I have a lot of magisterial work, which is basically using CRPC and Indian Criminal Procedure Code, and trying to pass a judgment on who did what and what exactly happened, which is basically a situation analysis of what happened in a particular incident, right? So that is what I'm supposed to do. And then there is a lot of, so SDM is basically the administrative head of a particular subdivision. Subdivision is basically, like I hope that you understand what is a block. Block is what a block development officer manages. So a couple of blocks combined makes a subdivision in general, right? So I am basically looking after the overall supervision of the administration in those two blocks. So basically, I may not be executing some of the projects directly, but I'm supposed to supervise, and I'm also answerable to the district magistrate, district collector for whatever happens under my subdivision. So that's one. And this, again, like I said, it covers everything, whatever construction is happening, whatever scholarships are given, ration cards, Aadhaar cards, caste certificates, so everything, whatever you can think of, that comes under my supervision. And for project officer of ITP Bhamragad, basically I am supposed to be the direct implementation authority of a lot of state projects. But the best part of being a project officer at ITP is it gives you a lot of scope for improvisation and innovation. So because tribal areas in India, unfortunately, are the most underdeveloped areas of the country. So whatever you do, whatever little you do, makes a huge impact in the lives of the people. So again, satisfaction-wise, outstanding, but also innovation and improvisation, novel ideas. There is a lot of respect for those ideas in the project office, and it really helps you kind of see things in a much bigger perspective, because you start interacting with a lot of people outside the government machinery in this office. But basically, it again comprises of everything and direct implementation of everything for the tribal areas.
So as per your opinion, what's the most difficult aspect of your duty?
One thing which has happened with most of the bureaucrats nowadays, and especially for IAS officers, is because of what has happened with the social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, most of us have started becoming so-called social media stars. And because of that, what has happened, so whatever makes us famous, whatever brings us to the newspapers, we start focusing attention on just that. And probably 70-80% of the attention of our time of our day starts going into that. And because of that, the routine administrative work, which actually is very important, especially to your subordinates, because their salaries, their pensions, their provident funds, everything is controlled by you and one signature of yours. But eventually, because of the star syndrome, you start ignoring those routine administrative responsibilities. And I'm not somebody who really believes that you have to devote 60% of your time on your routine duties, but 20% probably is not enough, because it's a huge administration that you are catering to, right? So I think that is something which is a big challenge of keeping a balance between your routine job as well as trying to do something which is game changing, of course, and which is also bringing it to use.
So what's your definition of success?
My definition of success is very simple. My definition is basically trying to do what you wanted to do. So in my opinion, success is very personal, very subjective. So whatever makes me feel that I have done enough for the day, that's success for me. So if it means signing 100 files a day, that's fine.
So what all are do's and don'ts you would suggest while preparing for civil service examination?
Not many, Gaurav. So that's because I believe that preparation strategy, the preparation methodology for every aspirant has to be unique. I never followed anybody's style, and I don't believe that anybody should follow mine. So it's as simple as that for me. But there are a couple of things which I really want to highlight for people. One is do not read many reference books for the same subject. So I think there should be maximum one reference book per subject and not more than that. Because you end up wasting a lot more time than you're gaining by reading multiple books, because everybody is talking about the same thing but probably in a different language. So that is something. Always focus on current affairs and do the newspaper reading yourself. Do not rely on third-party magazines, because again, they are not sufficient and it is very difficult to pass the exam if you don't read the newspaper. And lastly, treat the exam as an exam and do not make it your life, because I have observed many people around me who have been aspirants but who have unfortunately not been able to qualify, because there is an element of luck, of course, in this exam, right? Even I didn't expect myself to score 6th rank. So I don't know. People used to ask me before the result, what do you think will be your rank? I said, I'm not even sure of seeing my name in the list. What am I supposed to tell you about the rank? Right. So this exam is quite uncertain. This is never a determinant of your capability or your intelligence or your ability to serve the society or serve your own goals. So don't be disheartened if you do not see your name in the list, and probably if you do not put that much expectation pressures on yourself, you will actually be able to perform better in the exam. So I think those are probably some of the tips which I have for the aspirants.
So what's the first step and how and where to start preparing for civil service examination?
I think there are two things which I generally suggest. One is basically if you are very interested in starting very early, you can just start with reading the newspaper. Just read it for fun. Don't try to make notes out of it. Don't try to do anything. Just read it for fun. Probably research a little bit if you're interested in the topic. Just inculcating a habit of newspaper reading, and probably you will realize that your knowledge base keeps getting stronger day by day, and you will find it much easier when you actually go into detailed preparation for UPSC. That's one. And two is NCERT books. So when you just decide that you now have to start preparing for civil service, which I generally suggest should be third year or last year of your college, you basically can look at the previous papers a little bit and then try to understand what are the kind of questions UPSC asks, and then go into NCERTs and try to read them in that form. Ultimately should help you answer questions from UPSC.
So many kids just appear for civil service examination and do not have clarity on path and purpose of that examination. What advices would you like to give them?
Advice is very simple actually, and that will really help you deal with the performance and motivation issues also, which generally happen with a lot of people, especially nowadays. The idea is very simple, which I already said, but probably let me just expand on it, that treat UPSC just an exam and not your whole life. And by that I mean what I mean to say is very, very simple. I mean that you should always try to imagine, even when you're preparing, you should always imagine your life much beyond clearing the exam. What exactly do you want to do after you clear the exam? Most of us who clear this exam, they find themselves completely lost in the field because they have never imagined what their life would be after clearing the exam. Their ultimate goal is just clearing the exam, seeing their list, going to Mussoorie, Labasta, and that's it. Right? So they have never imagined what they want to do. They have never considered what challenges they might face. They have never even pondered upon those things, right? So that challenge really makes it more difficult for them to adjust into the field. And of course, if you do not clear the particular exam and your goal is just to clear the exam, then it becomes even more difficult to keep yourself motivated, right? So I think both these things become much easier if you just start kind of imagining what your life would be, what exactly do you want to do. Just, give yourself some time to figure out your life after you clear this exam, and that will make it much easier, because even if you don't clear the exam, you know what your end goal is. It was never clearing the exam but something else, and there can be other ways of doing that also.
So now we'll start a rapid round. Your favorite actor and actress?
Favorite actor is Amitabh Bachchan and actress is Deepika.
Your favorite color?
Blue.
The brand you love the most?
Peter England.
Your favorite car?
I don't know. I would want to say a Mercedes, but I don't know whether I can afford it anytime.
Your favorite book?
My favorite book is My Experiments with Truth by M.K. Gandhi.
The best boss?
All my bosses are my favorite.
Things in your wish list?
I want to go for a trek every alternate years with unknown people, and it should be a 7 days thing without phones. Next, I want to go for skydiving without a trainer. That's again on my wish list. And I want to see about 50 countries.
Your dream house?
I want a house which looks like a very cozy place in one of the hills of India.
Your role model professionally and personally?
Personally, my dad, just because of the kind of struggles I've seen him deal with. And again, professionally, all my bosses.
One thing that you would like to change if you are provided superpower?
Inequality of wealth and income in the country, and we were being too okay with it. It's not, we're not supposed to be that okay with it.
The second choice of career.
A lawyer.
At last, one line that defines you.
UPSC and life in general is like a boxing ring. You lose the fight not when you fall down, but when you refuse to get back up.
So thank you very much for your time. It was pleasure talking to you, and thanks for sharing your experience and advice on our show. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Thanks for watching Amazing Mentor, and do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to get regular updates. Thank you very much.